Welcome to Daily Drive for Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, GM invests more in Oshawa after cutting hundreds of jobs. Stellantis shakes up its supply chain leadership, and Auto Canada names a permanent CEO. Plus, Chris Walsh, president and acting CEO of Reynolds and Reynolds, joins the show to talk about the next phase of retail AI tech.
Those high volume, low risk tasks that happen in a dealership every single day. That we can leverage AI to do a lot of those things so people can focus on things that are, maybe more important and has a positive impact on consumers.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. General Motors is investing an additional 63 million Canadian dollars to upgrade its Oshawa assembly plant for next generation full-size pickups. The new funding adds to the $280 million that it committed in 2023, paying for stamping operations and sub-assembly upgrades. But it's a mixed message from GM. The automaker just cut the third shift at Oshawa in January, eliminating about 700 jobs and 50,000 units of annual capacity. GM cited forecasted demand and trade uncertainty. Meanwhile, the company plans to add roughly the same capacity at its Fort Wayne, Indiana plant. Stellantis is hiring GM veteran Marcello Conti as North America purchasing chief. Conti brings more than 30 years of automotive purchasing experience to the automaker. He replaces Marlo Vitas, who's moving to a global role overseeing the automaker's $13 billion U.S. investment program. The move comes as Stellantis works to repair strained supplier relationships and improve vehicle quality under CEO Antonio Filosa. And Canada's only publicly traded dealership group has a permanent leader. Auto Canada named Samuel Cochran as new CEO effective immediately. He's been serving as interim CEO since October and joined as CFO last August. Cochran takes the helm as Auto Canada wraps up the sale of its 17-store U.S. division and refocuses on its 64 Canadian dealerships and nearly 36 collision centers. He says there's significant work ahead to improve dealership performance and return the network to consistent profitability. And those are today's headlines. You can read more about all those stories at autonews.com. Humanoid robots are getting lots of hype early in 2026. Our own Lawrence Iliff has been looking into how automakers are making a big bet on those robots, not just using them in factories, but actually manufacturing them. Lonnie, welcome back to Daily Drive.
It's great to be here.
So, Lonnie, you write that automakers have an edge when it comes to building humanoid robots. What is that edge, and why not just buy them from other companies?
Automakers have these big manufacturing plants, right? And they need to, build cars and keep capacity up to make that economics work. And so you're looking at, all this installed capacity and then all this know-how, right? Automakers are making cars with cameras, with perception systems, with software, with the kinds of sensors and things that can translate into making robots. And so you think of it as like an adjacent business, right? Here's another business opportunity. Here's something that people say is going to be like really hot in the future. And so why not move in that direction? And you have kind of different tracks. Tesla wants to do it all by itself. They're already making their own robo taxis, and they're going to use the same software and some of the same supply chain, potentially to make humanoid robots, not just to work in their factories, but to work in your home. I mean, that's the vision.
Now, there's a wide range of strategies here. Tesla is going all in and converting a factory to build robots, while Mercedes and BMW are partnering with startups and Chinese automakers to deploy thousands of robots already. What does that tell us about where this technology actually is right now?
That's a great question because, there's skeptics too that we talked to in the story of saying, this is kind of really science fiction at this point. Some of the estimates that we saw about, for example, humanoid robots being larger than the current auto industry is in 2050. So I think, there's a lot of, hedging your bets. Tesla's all in. The Chinese, it looks like they see this as a very logical thing. They have robots out there dancing and doing karate and kind of already doing some basic things, and you can imagine them, moving really quickly into space like they did with EVs. And then you see, more traditional automakers, kind of getting a foot in, partnering with startups, just doing some testing, and kind of in the middle of, like, let's say the Tesla and China on one side, and then like Mercedes and BMW just kind of partnering, doing some testing. You kind of have Hyundai in the middle, which owns Boston Robotics. And so they already have working robots, and kind of, transforming those into industrial robots in Hyundai's factories, and then also maybe moving into the consumer robot industry.
Perfect. Lonnie Iliff, always insightful. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, guys.
Coming up, Reynolds and Reynolds CEO Chris Walsh talks about the company's record year and how their unified data layer is powering the next generation of AI tools for dealers. That's next on Daily Drive.
Are you a dealer creating a workplace culture your employees are proud to be part of? Applications are now open for the 2026 Automotive News Best Dealerships to Work For program. This isn't just an award, it's a chance to get real insight into what's working at your dealership and where you can improve. And we've expanded the categories this year, recognizing everything from technician experience and leadership development to AI enablement and employee retention. The registration deadline is April 17th. Find out more and apply at autonews.com.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. Reynolds and Reynolds had a record year in 2025. At this year's NADA show in Las Vegas, they saw more dealer traffic at their booth than any year in the past 7. Automotive News retail tech reporter Mark Homer spoke with Chris Walsh, President and Acting CEO of Reynolds and Reynolds, about what's driving that success and where AI is headed next.
Chris, thanks for joining us. We're glad you're here, and I'm wondering how the show's been so far.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate it. It's good to see you again. The show's been fantastic. The traffic has been, sky high. It's probably yesterday for sure. We went back and looked at, 7 years, and we had more people at our booth yesterday than we ever had in the previous 7 years.
So did you count? Like, do you know if it's more than 500 or 1,000, kind of thing?
It's more than 500. It's close to 1,000.
Really?
Yeah.
After the first day?
Yeah, for the first day.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about technology.
Sure.
And I noticed in particular you were at a tech event yesterday.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
You talking about the Steve Greenfield event?
Exactly. Basically to look at startups and evaluate what's there. I mean, what brought you there?
Well, our M&A team was going, and I knew they were going, so I wanted to go. The short answer is I learn when I go there. We've got relationships with FM Capital and TD Cowen, so we know those people. And so, and we meet with them, and every time we meet with them, I feel like I walk away smarter. They really know a lot about the industry, what's going on. They're pretty embedded in the industry. They know about companies. They know about new companies. They certainly know about companies that are, for sale or going to sale. But really what I learned is the way they look at the market, and the way they look at the industry. And they have a unique perspective. They're not a technology company, so I just feel like I learn a lot when I go there. So that's really why I went.
Did you make connections? What did you take away?
The Shark Tank thing was actually really cool. So one of them was Ryan Austin, who was with Goobagoo. We bought Goobagoo quite a few years ago, so we got to know Ryan. So I got to see Ryan talk about his new company and what they're doing. But a lot of it is just, kind of networking and seeing people that I hadn't seen in a while, and, getting their perspective on how things are going and what's new, and sometimes getting their perspective on us and what we're doing.
Sure.
I just feel like, it's good to hear that.
Excellent. Now, everybody's still talking about AI. Where do you see things going heading into 2026?
Well, for us, the important thing that we did a few years ago was to build Spark, which is our unified data layer. Mm-hmm. So that's the data that the AI tools are all pulling from. And, we're in a unique position that, we literally have decades and decades of data that we can gather insights from. So we have this, this tremendous data, which we collected, unified, and put into Sparks. So right now what you're seeing is things like using AI to respond to things. So asking it questions and it'll give you an answer. So you might say, hey, tell me how many F-150s I have in inventory right now. And it'll give you an answer.
Sure.
Instead of going to run a report, it'll do that. Or you may take that a little bit further and say, what should my inventory mix be of F-150s? And it'll tell you what they think, it'll do. We're using it to price out used cars. So when you're going to sell a car, it knows what the market comps are out there. So it gives you advice on how to price the vehicle. So, and it's not just telling you what it thinks you should do. It's also telling you why it thinks what it thinks.
Sure.
So it's based on this data. This is why I think what I think. It always gives the person the opportunity to disagree and say, no, I think I can sell this car for $1,000 more than that. So I'm going to price it $1,000 higher than what AI is recommending. So I think it's doing that. I said, so you ask it something, it tells you. Now I think it's going to move into, like, to use the F-150 example. So, what does my Ford inventory look like? Well, you have, 217 Fords on the lot right now. You're a little high on F-150s. So now it's giving you an insight into it. And the next step will be, it's not even you don't have to ask it anything. You're going to come in. You might log into your computer first thing in the morning, and it might say, hey, Mark, one thing you might want to look at today, and it's going to give you, an insight based on the data that it has. I think that's where all this is kind of going to, now.
It's been said that data is increasingly important because without good data, AI doesn't work well. So you guys are a few years into your data layer.
Yeah.
That was something positive to anticipate early. I mean, how successful has that switch been?
Well, it's hugely successful. And, it also brings in data from, we've got acquisitions that we've made, right? So we can now bring in, acquisition or data from, like, think about TSD, and the data they have around courtesy and loaner vehicles.
Sure.
and managing those assets. That data can go into Spark AutoVision, and all the used vehicle data that we have. So, we feel very strongly that we did the right things. We did all the hard work before, because that's the foundational work that needs to happen in order to make the AI tools do what it's. What you just mentioned is true. Like, it may do something wrong, or it just may not do the right thing.
Sure. Now, since I've been covering you for a few years now, I've followed very closely that you've very selectively made acquisitions.
Yes.
That address, a future tech need, whether it was cybersecurity or data or something else.
Right.
So in 2026, are you still looking for more select acquisitions like that?
I mean, we're always, open to an acquisition if something comes along that we think is a really good strategic fit. I think we'll be relatively quiet on the acquisition front this year. But, it's hard to say. Something comes up, it's like, okay, this is a strategic fit for us. It plugs a hole for our customers. It does something for the industry, whatever it happens to be, that it might be, a good fit for us.
Excellent. So what have you noticed about this year's conference? What is new, if anything?
Well, traffic is, the main thing that I've noticed about the conference. It's just so much higher. If you remember last year, we had, the weather, had a dramatic impact on the conference.
And all of us.
I think there's a lot more vendors here, I think, than I remember being here. And I haven't asked what the count is, but I'm pretty confident there's a lot more vendors here than there really maybe ever has been. So that's been something I've noticed.
When you're here in your capacity, do you go and do you take a stroll and do you talk to vendors that you haven't talked to before?
Yeah, not as much as I would like to, but I try to do it. It's such a fascinating place to walk around, and there's, companies that are just brand new and doing really interesting, things that sometimes no one else has even thought of, doing. So, that's interesting. So, and there's just a lot of cool tech here.
You are president and acting CEO. Are you still, or at least you were as of last year, in terms of the CEO part?
Right.
Is that going to become permanent?
Not a question for me to answer.
Nope.
But I feel like I'm doing the job. So I am acting like the CEO, and I am doing the things that I feel that need to be done to make this company successful and to keep it moving forward and to do things that help our customers be successful. At the end of the day, that's the reason that we exist, is to help our customers be successful and to help them deal with what's coming next. So if they decide they want to, take the acting away, that's their decision. I'd be glad to do it.
Sure.
If they want to keep it there for a while, that's also fine.
Fair enough. Now, in terms of something new, I'm wondering, what have you seen in terms of tech here that seems new to you?
Well, I think, I mean, you talking about within Reynolds or just in general?
In general, just walking around, and if that applies to Reynolds, both.
Yeah, I haven't walked around much, so I haven't seen a lot of tech. I know that I can provide much insight there. We've got, a lot of tech in our village. I mean, I think we have the largest booth. This is our 60th year exhibiting at NED. I think we're the
Hasn't been that long.
Exhibitor. I was not here for all 60 of them, though sometimes it feels like it.
Sure.
But, I know we feel like we've got a pretty comprehensive and robust suite of solutions to help retailers be more successful if you look at the entire Reynolds Village. So certainly the DMS things that we do, but even outside of that, a lot of the point solutions that we offer.
AI, we've talked about data being a thing. I know that cybersecurity is an important part of what you're doing as well. What is coming that's new beyond that? What do you say in terms of tech that might be useful?
Well, I think, you'll continue to see the evolution of AI that I talked about, and, really kind of how do we augment what people do in a dealership that, maybe they don't need to be doing and do it better, which in the end translates into a better, consumer experience. So think about like those high volume, low risk tasks that happen in a dealership every single day, that we can leverage AI to do a lot of those things.
Sure.
So people can focus on things that are, maybe more important and has a positive impact, on consumers. Think about yourself. Okay. So let's just say you're laying on the couch, 10 o'clock at night, you're looking for cars and you find a vehicle that you like and you submit a lead. Well, 99 out of 100 times what happens when you submit that lead at 10 o'clock at night is absolutely nothing happens. Yep. So the next day, maybe somebody responds to you, but what's happened to you the next day? Life has happened. You've woken up and you've gone on to, work, or people have kids and getting them to school and jobs, and all these things have happened.
Sure.
Now the opportunity to, have an impact on you has kind of been lost, right? So where you could meet them in the moment, in that case, or you sitting on the couch, submitting that lead and react to you then and try to get you to convert and take the next step, which would, certainly be to come into the dealership to look at the vehicle. So I think AI can really have a positive impact there on the consumer experience.
That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Lawrence Iliff for his reporting for today's podcast. We also had reporting from David Kennedy of our sibling publication, Automotive News Canada, and Kurt Nagel of Crane's Detroit Business. You can get the latest news on AI in dealerships, humanoid robots, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back tomorrow for a conversation with Techion CEO Jay Vijayan.
I don't say this lightly. We're the most secure and reliable platform in the industry.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.